Good afternoon. We can go ahead and call this meeting of the Neighborhood Partners Fund Board to order. It's 1:06. I would love to ask the county clerk to call the roll.
Chair Becker. Vice Chair Tramp. Member Flank. Member Lindsay. Member Churchill. Member Laris.
Here.
Member Lascano.
Here.
Member Estrada.
Here.
Member Goodsell.
Here.
Member Wong.
Here.
Member Trevino. Excused. Member Tahaje. Member Tahaje. Member Iturralde. Excused. Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And if anyone comes in late, if you could please mark them present when they arrive. All right, so that was order of business 1. Order of business 2, are we in compliance with open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much. All right, order of business 3 is public comment. I'm going to read this even though I don't see anyone here. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Seeing no one, I will close item of business 3, open item of business 4, which is a report by Yohaska Icabalceta.
Good afternoon. This is Joaska Cabalceta, Senior Community Program Technician with the Department of Neighborhood Services. The Neighborhood Partners Fund Board heard presentations from 20 applicants at their board meeting on April 6, 2026 and April 7, 2026. At today's meeting, the board will deliberate and make funding recommendations for each application. Those funding recommendations will be presented to the Mayor and City Council for possible approval at the June 17th City Council meeting. Funding for each application is limited. Applicants may not apply for more than $10,000. Some applicants requested less than the maximum amount for their project. The board may not recommend more than the requested amount. In addition, the Neighborhood Partners Fund Program guidelines require that associations provide a match that meets or exceeds their grant request. A minimum of 25% of the match must come from volunteer labor, valued at $34.79 this year. The board may not recommend an award higher than the applicant's 1-to-1 match. The remainder of the match can be from volunteer labor, in-kind donations, and/or cash. As specified in the Neighborhood Partners Fund Program guidelines, board members scored the applications prior to today's board meeting. The board has discretion in how it utilizes the scoring in the deliberations. As a reminder, anyone on the board that may have any conflict of interest, be sure to let the city attorney know at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Member Estrada had already announced earlier that you have to recuse yourself from one.
Deputy City Attorney Crystal Vigala here for the record. Yes, when you guys get to that item to vote for that one, if you could just restate that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, this is Chair Becker, so that's going to open up item number 5. And as we spoke about at our last meeting, this is going to be a discussion about how we utilize these scores. And I know that all of us have been looking at these applications and coming up with our own ideas of how to allocate the funding. So when I was thinking about it, I feel like the best way to go about this is to kind of let everyone get on the record with their reasoning. And how everyone feels about how to allocate the funds, because we have $80,000 to allocate, and more than double that has been requested. So I can go last. I can just start at one end and go down, and we can discuss how we want to utilize the scores that we now have in front of us here, or whatever kind of thought process you are going through on how we can reduce the amount that's being asked. Yes, Member Wong.
So my question is there a particular order that we assess the applications? Is it an alphabetical order?
So when we close this item of business, we'll go to item of business 6. And usually we do go in alphabetical order. We don't have to go in alphabetical order, but we have to vote on each one individually about how much money we're giving to each. So if we don't discuss how we're going to allocate the funding beforehand, we could theoretically allocate too much and then leave neighborhoods with no funding. So I think we need to discuss in general how we're thinking about allocating so that when we do get to them individually, we know how much we're going to give to each.
May I propose to the board at the outset that we consider assessing the applications in order of the highest average score? Because I feel as though if, say, for example, an application has a particularly high score, I think the board may be able to come to an agreement sooner and also have a greater shared understanding of how much should be allocated to those with higher scores. And I anticipate as we start to assess the applications with lower scores, then I feel like that's where we really need to start having deeper discussions on allocation and assessing, okay, well, how much of the $80,000 is left to be allocated to the lower scoring applications?
This is Chair Becker. Thank you, Member Wong, for that. I think that sounds good as well, but I do want to hear from everyone. So can we start to the right, or my right, with Mary Ann? I apologize, I forget your last name.
Member Goodsell, like not a bad buy. Okay, so just as a caveat, this is my first year, so keep that into consideration. I do think my background brings one kind of discerning criteria that I think should be thoughtfully applied in this application, and that is, my background is I've been on an HOA board of over 3,000 units for about 18 years, and know really the intricacies of how they work. One of my concerns about some of these applicants, so when you look at it, there are two, in my mind, different distinctions. There are neighborhood associations that collect no dues, and then there are HOAs. The homeowners associations are governed by a statute called NRS 116. And in that statute, there are very, very specific legal obligations that an HOA has. You receive dues from your homeowners. Generally, it can be private property. The HOA I oversee has both public and private property. Those in gated communities must contribute to what's called a reserve study. The reserve study in NRS 116, .31.31151 talks about the specific obligations, the legal responsibility an HOA has to pay for future repairs of common interest areas like gates, like monument signs, landscape, lighting, asphalting a road. I noticed that funds had been given to a private gated community to re-asphalt. It is the responsibility of the HOA to hold in a reserve account monies. For example, if I own a lamppost and the life expectancy of that lamppost is 20 years, in my reserve studies, I say, okay, in 20 years from now, this is how much it's going to cost to replace that $100 lamppost. It's going to cost $250, and the lifespan ends in 20 years. I need, as an HOA, it is my legal responsibility to hold and save $250 to replace that. That would mean a gate that if you want to upgrade, that must be in the reserves to do that, and that is the HOA's responsibility to do that. So we have several that fall under this, and I noticed in the types of projects that are not eligible, one of the components is operating deficits. And so for an HOA to come for public funds to be used for something that they may have not managed properly, I think we need to take that very seriously. I think it doesn't sort of abide by the things we have, even if things were caused by a fire, you need new engineering for it. Those are things that an HOA is responsible to anticipate, and it does mean sometimes you have to increase the dues that homeowners will pay, but that's part of being a part of an HOA and owning private property, which I think we need to be very careful about spending public funds where public are not allowed to access through a gate or other ideas. Anyway, but that's one I feel should be a criteria, just because the HOAs are responsible for that, and if they haven't taken care of their funds, now they're asking for public funds to sort of fix their problem. I think I would have a very difficult time going along with that, since, other properties have to pay for their own gates, have to pay for their own asphalt, lights, lampposts, landscape, whatever. The other thing is, I just would be really interested in the rest of the committee's thoughts on, to the extent that we fund parties. Some of them seem like, oh, my goodness, and then somebody wants an ice cream truck and it's $2,000, and somebody wants a scoop of ice cream for some kids for 120. Like, how extravagant does the committee feel is appropriate to go? And then I think on some that do have some private property issue to our councils, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her name.
Deputy City Attorney Chris Levy-Gallicay, for the record.
Okay, that. Your counsel on, I know there was one that we would require access to private property to grant. I would just want your assurance you feel comfortable with whatever documents we need to have signed or whatever, would really defer to you for your counsel on how to proceed with some of the private property issues that might so those were my questions and my considerations.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. Member Estrada, did you have thoughts?
Board Member Estrada. I kind of feel like you do with the neighborhoods and the homeowners association, you know, and I just feel that some of the neighborhood associations, there's more of a need there. And some of the HOAs I see, there's more of a want, you know. So how we slice that pie, I don't know yet. I mean, we have to get all the input, but that's kind of where I'm coming from in terms of how I feel.
Member Goodsell, to that point, there are even, HOAs have a way to acquire funds. Based on my understanding of a neighborhood association, they do not unless somebody out of the kindness of their heart wants to write a check. There are also some of the organizations that are coming forward and wanting funds for events, and am I allowed to use a specific, like the Rainbow Party? There are HOAs within those areas in that section, I forget what that section is called, that could actually provide HOA funds to enhance what a neighborhood association would do, where they could work in collaboration, which I think would be a great consideration.
Thank you. Apology. Go ahead. Okay, Member Flank, do you have thoughts? Go ahead, Member Tramp.
I'm Matthew Tramp for the record. I'm actually in agreement too. I think we should have our priorities first. I think beautification projects or things that are community should be the first priority first, and then block parties I think should be our last priority. And I'm on the agreement right now too. What I'm also noticing this too, a lot of these are the same I've been on this committee for 6 years. A lot of these are the same neighborhoods that are annually trying to get funds for block parties. And what I'm observing is they've ran their budgets higher. So now because this is the first year we've raised it from 5,000 to 10,000. So what I'm seeing is a lot of these are affluent neighborhoods or just are upping up their budgets, so taking advantage of trying to get more grant money for a party. When a lot of these are established neighborhoods who don't need grant funding for parties. I think it hurts. I think it disenfranchises when poorer neighborhoods who don't have the resources, they can't throw a party that expensive, a block party or a community event too. So, I mean, I thought about this. One idea is we could, for the ones that are just focusing only on block parties, we can make a standard cap that they can't get we can have a maximum amount only for those. Or also, we divide all these neighborhoods, we can go 4,000 even. 2 of them are asking for less than 4,000, so we would be at 78,000 then if we went by that scenario first, and then obviously we can reject or lower fundings in some of these as we go by each application. So like my idea is number 1 is just to make it even and make it 4,000 max per neighborhood. Or the second idea, like I said, I'd be for suggesting maybe maxing out $1,000, $2,000, when everyone's in agreement for block party, who are only doing block parties only. So,
Member Goodsell, I have a question I would like your opinion on. There was a fair amount of swag proposed. What have we done historically? What are people's thoughts on sweatshirts and hats and matching tote bags and Ring camera giveaways and those kinds of, I'd love to hear people's ideas on that.
I do think in the past some have actually included that too. But I think it's also becoming the same repeated neighborhoods too that are asking for this merchandise again. So that's why I think if we put a cap just on block parties only at a very low amount, I think to me the grant money would be limited on what they could be using that money for too. So.
Member Chair, I have a few comments. Oh, sorry. I appreciate your comments and agree with a lot of what you said. I've also been on the board a number of years and have seen these gatherings and block parties provide a good benefit for the community coming together. So in years past, I've also thought, oh man, just another block party. I was pleased to hear that they've tweaked it such that they know these door prizes and incentives for them to come and get a Ring app and get a hat and wear a shirt shows pride, gets the buy-in, draws them into the event, makes some contact. So I kind of was happy about that because I too have seen the same HOAs and neighborhood associations come together for the same type of thing. Maybe they're not as creative. Maybe we on city staff can do a little bit better as coaching some of our neighborhoods to be, you know, a little bit more out of the box. But I don't want us to think that block parties are not helpful. I do think that they are still a sense of community that some of these neighbors rely on. I did love hearing your insight with the HOA's budget and how we can work in tandem and if maybe we can identify some of those applications at the onset and we're aware, hey, this is in to supplement something that they already attempt to do with their own budget, that would be helpful for us when we're grading because it is hard, you know. And I also think that this year being the first of which 10,000 is even offered, you know, I think everyone was like, woohoo, let's try to get the most, but it makes it so much harder for us. So I just wanted to put my comments there.
Member Goodsell, sorry.
Wait, I think Member Wong had a comment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, so I just wanted to address a couple things that had been mentioned before. So with regards to the HOAs, I completely agree with Member Goodsell and I understand, but I also recognize and I do trust the board to assess each application on a case-by-case basis. Because even if there's an HOA involved where NRS governs or their bylaws govern, I think what moves me most is the effort they put into acquiring community partners on the project. And I trust us to be able to assess what is the true need. I don't want to write someone off just because they're an HOA and just because, oh, it's part of the common area. I think that's a huge disservice to the HOAs who did put in the work and the effort to say, hey, let us just try, right? Especially for the ones, and I won't name them until they come up, but there was one in particular that had a huge community buy-in, and this is Las Vegas. Las Vegas is about community. What are we if we don't look out for each other and help each other? I do think that it is at the board's discretion to assess. As for the suggestion that for the block parties, we take the pool and divide it evenly. I also think that's a disservice to the applicants because I went through every single one of those documents. I went through every quote. I know how much a food truck costs versus an ice cream truck versus party rentals. I mean, I think my brain is fried from reading all those numbers. But I don't want to just do like a flat line 4,000 because it's ignoring the work that they put into getting those quotes, getting those community sponsorships and partnerships, getting those donors, putting together those volunteer hours. So I understand it may extend deliberations longer and it might not be as easy, but I think we owe it to the applicants to honor the work that they did during the application process. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something to add, Member Goodsell?
Member Goodsell, in the rust shirt at the end, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, and you changed your clothes, so I don't remember. Was it Ida? Ida, sorry. About addressing maybe those that might not meet the criteria, I do have a list of ones to consider that would fall into that HOA, the NRS 116 consideration. I do have a list of those if you wanted to address it that way, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, and to the left, do we have more? Would you like to add your thoughts? Or Angel? Yep.
No, I just thought that a lot of, like specifically 3 of the HOAs that are asking for funds are asking, like their block party, they're allocating a lot of those funds to the parties instead of like actually putting it towards the neighborhood.
Thank you. Member Laxano?
Definitely agree with the opinions shared that we should definitely take those considerations of the HOA, I think, and prioritize, like, as much as how valuable these block parties are, I think, like, I definitely see, like, there is some more of a need in some of these neighborhoods that we should prioritize over block parties, and those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Jan Churchill. I served on this board last year, and I noticed that there's a lot of repeat applicants. I don't know if that matters to the board, if a lot of them come here as a constant source of funding for their HOA. But I like the idea of the lady at the end, I'm sorry, of
Goodsell.
taking the lower numbers, what you said, and divvying up the funds that way. I think that makes sense, because you hate to see anybody penalized because they've all worked hard for this.
Thank you. Member Churchill.
Hi, Member Tehahe. My first time here this year. Hello? There. I love what everyone said. Everyone has great points, and so I look forward to moving ahead with all of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is Chair Becker. Thank you, everybody, for your input. I kind of wrote down what my ideology was too, and I agree with many of your points, and I really appreciate the folks who know HOA law and things like that, because that is definitely not my area of expertise. My thoughts were basically to, number one, give neighborhoods asking for a sign, except for one neighborhood that I think it's actually part of their HOA bylaws to do that. Give all of those neighborhoods $3,000 each. And then the 3 neighborhoods who are hosting the joint block party with Huntridge, my thought was to give them all $3,300. So then all together for that block party, they're gonna get that max amount basically of $10,000 since it's 3 different neighborhoods. My third thought was to give the full amount to West Side since they're only asking for $3,000. And then for Copper Palms, they're asking for $6,000 and just reducing that to $4,000. And then for all the other projects, in my head, I just awarded them $5,000 each, except for Palomino Gardens, $4,100. And that's just how I got to $80,000 before I'd seen the scores. But I think that it is worth going in the order of who scored the highest. I liked that idea from Member Wong because we have not seen the scores yet until today, and I think if we go in the order of who scores the highest, we can have an individual conversation. But it sounds like we all agree that we do, first of all, need to probably reduce almost everyone's amount because we can't give everybody the max. And also take each individual property or each individual neighborhood association on their merits and not just say, let's just reduce it across the board. Does that sound good? I have a question for staff. Once we start actually making votes, can we have an ongoing spreadsheet so that we can keep track? I mean, I'm gonna write it down, but can we try to keep track of the math? Because I know it's gonna get really confusing.
Yes, Joska Neighborhood Services, I have a spreadsheet that I have pulled up for that.
All right, so for order of business 5, is there any other discussion that anyone wants to have about utilizing this scoring, or how you think maybe we should not reward people, but prioritize the folks that have put in like the most work and have earned a higher score, so that we can somehow allocate funding in a fair way to the neighborhoods that scored the highest? Is there anybody with thoughts about that? Or do y'all just want to jump in and start with the neighborhood that scored the highest?
I would suggest that we just jump right on in.
I like it. Okay. So I think, if I'm correct, that closes order of business 5, and now we're going to open order of business 6. And this is where we'll have a discussion on each neighborhood, but when it comes to the time that we're funding them, someone does have to make a motion. Is that right? Okay, so someone has to, once we finish the discussion, say, I move that we award X amount of dollars to this association. Does that have to be seconded? It does not. Okay. If we, once the motion's been made, that opens the discussion? Okay. But the motions will be made at the very end for all the neighborhoods, or we'll do them one at a time? Okay.
Deputy City Attorney Chris Levigal here for the record. So once we do get to the end, the preference is to individually go through each and line by line enter or specify how much each organization will get. So those will each be motions, but I think like the clerk had mentioned, you guys can kind of discuss what you want to award for each. That way you can see the spreadsheet, and if you need to decide, you do that without having to go back and revise every motion. And then I just wanted to mention, as far as the conflict, if you can restate that conflict before discussion start, and then once we are discussing, that includes no discussion or vote on that specific organization that you have the conflict with.
Board Member Estrada, I'd like to recuse myself from the grand entries application because I am a member of the association. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. This is Chair Becker. So I think that is great. That makes sense. So we will open up item 6 with this discussion, and after we discuss each, we can have Johaska put that into the spreadsheet, and then at the end of the total discussion, we might have to adjust some of the numbers, and then we can vote on each of them with a motion. Ooh, exciting. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at the sheet here, and it looks like the highest scoring neighborhood is Fremont Street Loft Homeowners Association. And I'm just going to turn to them in my packet. So if there's anyone that has ideas, they have asked for the full amount of $10,000, said that their minimum grant is $10,000. I wrote down that I would give them $5,000, but I would love to hear what other members have to say about that.
Member Goodsell, so this is one that falls into that HOA reserve situation. There, with some caveat, depending upon some new improvements, I don't know if this is a gated community or not, so, but I believe this is probably privately owned property, but it would fall under that reserve, even though they're trying to do new things, which could be a consideration for sure, but this would be something that their reserves would normally assess. The weird component is the fire, the unexpected disaster. So I have reserve study question mark next to it. So this would be one, if we were to make an exception, I think we have really good grounds in terms of what an HOA's responsibility is to make an exception for this particular property.
Okay, and this is Member Becker, for the record, did you have an idea, did you want to award $0 for this one, or?
Member Goodsell, I originally had, anybody that had an HOA reserve issue, I actually declined all of those. This fell into that category. That being said, I would consider if there were other, advocating ideas that would go along with that. I actually have 6 that would fit under the reserve study situation in my mind.
Any other thoughts? Member Estrada, your mic is on. Did you want to? Oh, no, that's okay. Member Wong?
So in looking at their costs for the civil engineer, I believe it exceeded 30,000. And they're only asking for less than a third of that. And I do acknowledge Member Goodsell's comments about it being an HOA and that this would be something that a reserve study would cover. But fires like those don't happen very often, and it was very well publicized. It was the largest residential fire, I think, in over 20 years. And this goes back to the comments I made earlier about acknowledging community. I would love to see one of those UNLV students be told, hey, your idea, it's going to come to life. And you're going to be able to create this community space for this community. I acknowledge that it may be a gated area or a gated community. I acknowledge it's on private property. But 10 buildings burnt down. I think there were 100 people that were displaced. In the spirit of Vegas, I actually put that I gave them the full 10,000 that they were asking for, because it doesn't nearly cover what they actually need to do what they want done. And watching the video, seeing that Councilwoman Diaz was in attendance of that meeting as well, I think this is one of those asterisks where the board should really consider maybe accepting the did you say it was NRS 116 that governs HOA responsibilities?
This is Member Iturralde. I appreciate Member Wong's comments and echo that. This community really suffered and really went through a hard time for quite a number of years immediately following, especially because fire investigations are never cut and clean. It was at that time that I got to know Ms. Conyers and educated her about some of these programs that would be available, and she's blown my mind because she's really taken this to another level and expanded her reach with UNLV and has worked so hard to make these groups collaborate and come together. I would love to give everybody in Ward 3 their full ask, but I gave them all 50% still. But I know that she's coming again and back and building upon her ask. So I feel that even if we could do the half amount, I know this community will not stop. They'll always come back. They're going to need to rebuild. It's been hard. They're in a really tough area. They have a lot of other elements to deal with, let alone just their, immediate buildings. So for those reasons, I went ahead and said yes, but to the half amount. And I thought that was being really conservative.
Thank you.
Member Lindsay, I myself also indicated that through my scoring that I would do 4,500 to 5,000, anywhere around that, just because I felt that it was an ongoing rehabilitation of the neighborhood. They're here every year. They're trying to make it better. As indicated, UNLV support. It's just an all-around good thing, in my opinion.
Any other thoughts? Member Flank?
Yes, Member Flank. First of all, I'd like to say I do understand and appreciate the challenges that this neighborhood is having, but the volunteer hours, I can't see the connection between awarding dollars for a grant and these volunteer hours. They've listed, I think, all of the residents in the neighborhood. It comes up to 440 volunteer hours. But what does that have to do with the cost of this consultant? I'm not seeing the tie or the connection between the two to actually justify a grant award. When I look at these neighborhood projects, it's things that are actually being done by the residents in the community. So I do understand they have a need, but I just don't see the connection.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. My understanding is that these volunteer hours for this particular neighborhood consist of all the members of the community are going to meetings, like actively on a regular basis. I think other people on the board might know more about the specifics there. And like when they have put together with UNLV, with the students, when they did the charrette, the members of the community were there and had input into the design and everything that they're looking to build into the future. That's my understanding of what the volunteer hours are. If somebody else has more information about that or wants to put that on the record, please do.
Member Flank, I've always looked at the volunteer hours as things that the residents are actually going out doing in the community. For instance, like the tree planting that they've had, the cleanup in the neighborhood, and then have a block party. I don't have a problem with that because they are actually volunteering and doing things in the community. And that's what the money is going towards. I don't know, I just have a problem with, you know, the money going towards a consultant.
Thank you. This is Member Becker again. Any other thoughts, Member Wong?
I think we have to acknowledge that this particular project cannot be compared to something like a block party or beautification project. This is a huge undertaking for this particular neighborhood, and I think in reading through the supporting documents, it was assumed that this is just the first phase of many phases, and I have a difficult time not acknowledging other community members involved, especially our local university and members of city council. I think that alone, their involvement alone speaks volumes. Volunteer hours is just one component of the entire application. There's another component of the application that asks board members to assess what other community partners are involved. And I think weighing things on a case-by-case basis, this was the one application that showed the strongest degree of outside community involvement, and I grant deference to that over whether or not there's a direct connect between their volunteer hours and the project itself. They can't have a tree planting ceremony or a social because they don't have the space to do it. That's why they're hiring the civil engineer to build out that space. And then maybe later, those residents can have community events in that community space. But until that community space is built, I think it's a big ask to normalize what they're asking for to what other applicants are asking for in this cycle.
Member Flank, like I said, I understand the need, but I don't think their ask falls in the parameters of this type of grant. If perhaps we can get some clarification on what these grants are. Now, I've been on the board for 3 years, and I think Fremont got money last year, didn't they? And I think they actually, there was some work that was involved with it. I can't recall, but what the projects should encompass is something that's being done in the community as a community with all of the residents. And I know time is money, time is effort, but it's my understanding about these projects that it's about community beautification, community unification, and bringing everyone together in a project.
Joske Cabalceta, Neighborhood Services. So I just want to mention the umbrellas that we have under this grant. And so it would be the neighborhood improvement projects, crime and public safety programs, and neighborhood educational, recreational, or cultural initiatives. Let me pull up. Okay, so and reading the volunteer hours pledge sheet that was uploaded by the HOA here, I do see what looks like them putting they're volunteering their time by the implementation of the idea of this project. They're working together, organizing focused events around the project. They have event planning. They have somebody who is also doing photo and video documentation of the project, someone that's overseeing the contractor services and etc. So I just wanted to mention that as far as volunteer hours go, dependent on what they're applying for, if it's let's say a cleanup, then we're looking at these volunteer hours and seeing if the residents in the neighborhood association is volunteering their time to do the cleanup. If it's a beautification project that consists of an outside contractor, obviously they wouldn't be doing the on-hand work of that project, but they can submit their volunteer hours and specifically that 25% requirement, and things like the neighborhood meetings and things like coming together and planning what contractor or doing cleanups in their neighborhood. That's not specifically like the on-hands work of that particular contractor project.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. I think that I just want to acknowledge that there are going to be disagreements today among members of the board about different specifics of each project, but we are going to have a vote at the end on each one, so we're all going to get to voice our concerns, and some of us are going to vote no altogether on some projects, I think. But I think what we need to do to fill in this spreadsheet right now is just come to a consensus of how much we want to write in for this project so that we can move on to the next, and then once we're voting on them at the end, someone can say, yes, I want to keep that number and make that motion, or they can make a motion to make it bigger or smaller. I feel like the consensus, I know that one member said that they had given them the whole 10,000. Several members said that they had written half for 5,000 on their sheet. Does everyone feel like there's a consensus to just put in the spreadsheet now 5,000? Or do people want to put in more than that now and come back to it later? Any thought? My thought is to just write in 5,000 for now. If anybody else has other ideas there.
Member Goodsell, I agree. That's what it sounds like to me.
Okay, so let's put 5,000 for Fremont Street now, and then once we're voting on them all at the end, we'll see if that is what we end up with. All right, so it looks like the next one that we can discuss is Crestwood Neighborhood Association. They scored 81.09 for an average for all of our scores. Does anyone have anything they would like to put on the record about the Crestwood application?
Member Goodsell, would it be appropriate to address, is it Crestwood, Hillside Heights, and Hunt Ridge all at the same time? Aren't they the three that are working together? Do I have that right?
Yes, Member Becker, I agree that we should just take them all together. Does everyone agree with that? I stated earlier, what I did is just gave them all an equal amount because I feel like their application was done in coordination with each other, and then the total amount that I came up with was like $9,900. So basically the total, $10,000, $3,300 each. Does anybody have any thoughts? I know they put in a lot of effort into this, and in the past, Huntridge has gotten the full 5,000 themselves. One of the other neighborhoods has applied before, the other one has not, I believe. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
This is Member Iturralde, another proud Ward 3 project, and I'm really happy that these groups came together to collaborate on this ask. I know they had wanted to make the same grand effort last year and couldn't, and so I'm so glad that they were able to tweak things such that it could be proposed that way. I like your divvy of the 3,300 and to give them that whole amount. And I feel like it's still giving them something to work towards because I do want them to feel motivated to continue this like group effort. And I know there's a couple of others that are going to trail behind and maybe next year it'll get even bigger. But I feel confident with how you've divvied that up too and made that suggestion. Thanks.
It's Crestwood neighborhood. I forget what the third one is. Huntridge, and what's the third one?
Crestwood, Hillside, and
It's
Huntridge.
Hillside. Okay, yes, thank you. Yes, so it's on our sheet in alphabetical order. It's number 4, number 9, and number 11.
Member Goodsell, does anybody have the document right in front of them about how much each group was spending towards the doggy stations? Member Wong, do you remember what that amount is?
I have the Crestwood one in front of me. It's around $2,000 for the doggies, $1,000 for the sculptures, and then around another $1,000 for the waste depot and the going to Home Depot for concrete.
Member Goodsell, so do the math in your head. How much is the total? What was the total of those all combined?
This is Chair Becker, just of the dog stations. If it's 2,000 each neighborhood, because I think each neighborhood was contributing to that, so it would be 6,000
Member Goodsell,
total?
the other components of that, what was the total of all those components that you brought together?
That Member Luxano stated.
One side putting in the calculator. So for Crestwood, it would have been $2,034.50. So times 3, 6,103.50.
Member Goodsell, did you have a concern about spending on that item?
Member Goodsell, no, I just wanted to see how what you were recommending matched up with that. I'm good. Was it 3,300 you were recommending?
This is Chair Becker. That's what I had written down, just so that the total amount for the 3 neighborhoods gets them to the total of 10,000. Are there any other thoughts? Do you think we can put 3,300 for these 3 neighborhoods each? Member Wong?
Oh, I don't know if I'm just being too generous, but in the spreadsheet that I created for myself, when I was scoring, I gave I proposed that each association be awarded the minimum amount they were asking for, which was 6,000 for a total of 18,000, because the 3,000 is for the doggy stations and the sculptures, but the highlight is the large neighborhood celebration party, and there's nothing being allocated to that. And so that's why I figured they're asking for 8,000 each, but the minimum was actually 6. So I fell back to the 6,000 minimum for each one for a total of 18,000 for all of them. But I recognize that could be considered later.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair Becker. So it sounds like there is consensus that they should all get the same amount. We just need to decide what amount to give them. Are there any other thoughts besides the 3,300 or 6,000 each?
Member Goodsell, I actually awarded them their full asking. I just thought this was a great project and showed real creativity in an area that would probably not, have somebody pull this together, and that they wanted to combine 3. And then I believe the number that this affects was something close to 2,000 people. So I thought there was kind of a big bang for the buck. So I actually awarded the full amount, but I'm not saying that's what we need to do. But this seems to meet all the criteria for these grants. So maybe a good compromise would be, like Member Wong, the 6,000, doing the minimum for each one of them would be a consideration that I would agree with as well.
Member Flank, this project, I thought, fell within the guidelines of what these grants are actually for. in my worksheet, I would grant them 6 to 7 for each one, so 6,000 for each one of the communities' work. I think with the volunteers that they get, they'll be able to make up the difference for the money that they don't get in an award. I think this is going to be a fabulous party, and I'm sure Councilwoman Diaz will be there. Yes.
Thank you, Member Flink. Go ahead.
And this is Member Lascano for the record. I agree. I think right now the 6,000 for each of them, the minimum would make sense, and then we could revisit it later depending on where we're at by the end of deliberations.
I have a final comment, just that I anticipate more of these kind of group efforts and applications to come forward, so I appreciate our deliberation on that and everybody's comments too, so.
Excellent. All right, this is Member Becker. Anyone else? All right, I think that we can put in the spreadsheet 6,000. Does that sound for everybody? 6,000 for all three. So Hillside Heights, Crestwood, Huntridge, 6,000 each. And if we need to revisit, we will. Ooh, we knocked out 3 at the time. All right. The next highest looks like it's the Westside Community Neighborhood Association. They scored 80.75. Does anybody want to start off with their thoughts about Westside? Who I will add is this is their first time applying.
Member Goodsell, who always has something to say about everything, evidently. This is one I feel like it's a shame we can't give them more. This feels, I would recommend giving them the full 3,000 and then encourage them to apply for 10 next year. I think this is just, I have 4 stars. Well, I should put 5. I completely respect these efforts, and it's in an area that if they don't do it, who would do it? So I would say my recommendation would be the full 3,000.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. I also had the full 3,000. Did anybody else not have the full 3,000? And Member Laxano, you wanted to comment?
This is Member Lascano for the record. I just wanted to agree. I think this is a really awesome initiative and somewhere where that investment is really needed, and it would be a shame if we didn't help out.
Excellent. Okay, this is Chair Becker. So 3,000 for theirs, that's the maximum that they asked for. And again, I also wish we could give them more, but as you stated, we cannot. All right. I think the next association that scored the highest is Winchester Maintenance Corporation with 77. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's Glen Heather with 77.31. Does anybody want to kick off the discussion about the Glen Heather Estates application? This is still Chair Becker. I had just said to give them 5,000, which is half of what they applied for, because I kind of reduced most of them to half on my spreadsheet. But I would love to hear other people's thoughts.
Member Wong, I'm not too far off from that 5,000. I was pretty specific. I proposed 5,235 for specific things: the dumpsters for the cleanup, the shredding dumpsters for the shredding event, the neighborhood watch signs, and the barricades for the block party only. When I added up those expenses, it came out to 5,235.
Okay, excellent. This is Chair Becker. I believe there was an email exchange that I think members of the board were on where Member Tramp had asked the neighborhood partner or the neighborhood services team whether we can like line item approve things, and we cannot. I mean, we can go through ourselves and say that's how much we're approving because that's the things that we want to pay for, but we can't like demand that that's how they spend the money. So if we give them that much money and say these are the things we liked, they could still spend it on something else. I think, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, acknowledged. I figured we can't tell them what to do with it, but I figured that was a fair way for me to justify coming up with the number non-arbitrarily.
Member Goodsell, I have a question. So when they write their minimum is 8,000, because I was along the lines with the, closer to the 5,000 as well, but if they put minimum 8,000, what does that mean? Like they want 0 or 8, 8 to 10,000 or 0? Like if we came below, like how does that, do they just take the money and do none of this? How does that play out?
Joaska Neighborhood Services. So the minimum is basically what they're saying is that's the minimum funding that they would need to complete that project.
Member Goodsell, funding from us or in total?
Funding for the MPF like grant.
Okay, so if we
put-
give them less than that, then nothing? Like, can they do, are they saying we can't do, we're crippled if we don't get at least $8,000? What are the ramifications of us giving them something less than what they've stated their minimum to be?
I mean, the board can decide how much to fund each association, but just with that knowledge of knowing that they put in that their minimum funding would be the minimum that they would need to complete whatever project. Yes.
This is Chair Becker. I have a follow-up question to that. If at the end of when we voted on all these and we have a number for each neighborhood, if a neighborhood came to you and said, thanks, but no thanks, we actually don't want to accept that funding because we can't do the project now, then we can't allocate it to someone else, right? Because we would already be done with our allocation process. Like, can neighborhoods decline to be funded and like cancel their project?
Joaska Neighborhood Services. I know that obviously if they're not going to sign the agreement at that time, which would be in July, if they felt that they weren't going to be able to use the fundings to complete the project, then they wouldn't sign. I'm not 100% sure if we would be able to allocate. I would want to get clarification from leadership before I would answer that.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair Becker. That is what I figured. In past experience, we've never, and we have given people less than they have asked for. No one has ever, in my knowledge, since I've been on the board, said we don't want the money. So I think all of these neighborhoods are aware that way more money has been asked for than we actually have to give out. So I feel like they're prepared for our allocation to be less even than their minimum in most cases.
I'm Matthew Tramper for the record. Also, I can't verify, but in the past too, some people don't follow through the projects or meet all the requirements, so they do sometimes get less. Even we may have allocated a certain amount of money, but if they don't follow guidelines, they will only get awarded what they earned. So it could also happen where we voted to approve, let's say 4,000, but they didn't follow the guidelines, so they may be like only eligible for 2, so then the city does have the jurisdiction to award them less if they don't follow certain guidelines too. So that happens too. So not just because we award or approve, it doesn't mean there have been times where not all the money that we voted on went to the neighborhood because I know some people have canceled or some people had to change because, their budget was off or something. So that does happen. So.
All right, so for Glenn Heather, are there any thoughts? I know that several people have stated that they allocated them the 8,000 minimum or a little bit more than half, which is 5,000. Are there any thoughts about what we should put on our spreadsheet right now so that we can move on?
I'm gonna recommend the 5.
Thank you, Member Churchill. This is Chair Becker. So does 5,000 sound good to everybody for now? And if we have extra, we can give them more since they scored higher? Okay, excellent. Let's do 5,000 for Glenn Heather at the moment. And that moves us on to, now it's Winchester, who scored just like 0.3 less. 77.24 for Winchester Maintenance Corporation Association. Since I'm already talking, I'll just say that I had also given them half of their total that they asked for, which was 5,000. I I didn't put a lot of notes for myself for them. Does anybody have any other thoughts on the Winchester?
Matthew Tramp here for the record. So we are only awarding half, but let's also remind you they are going to the more energy efficient lightings too. I remember this too, which is also long run cost saving too. So I feel that they've produced a very fiscally responsible idea on this too. And like I said, and you said 5,000 was your preference. So 5,000 I would be comfortable with. I mean, they were only getting about half what they're awarding, but and I know this is an HOA, but I do think lighting also can affect outside the community too, so.
Member Goodsell, this is Chair Becker. Did you have concerns about what the HOA should be funding for this one?
Member Goodsell, absolutely. This is one that I declined to contribute anything to. Things like root problems, upgrading lighting are really a responsibility of the HOA. But to the point that the lighting can enhance the exterior, that is true. I also have 3 question marks by the volunteer hours. Now I can't remember why I put that. But anyway, those are just my thoughts.
Okay, this is Chair Becker. Anyone else? So we've got some folks wanting to give them half, and Member Goodsell has declined to fund. Does anybody have other thoughts?
So I had assessed potentially awarding 2340. Again, because of, and I did recognize that this is one of those HOAs, and I did read their bylaws in detail, and I think that a lot of what they were asking for is definitely an HOA responsibility, but as Member Tram had highlighted the lighting, I feel like that warrants like an exception for consideration, but I didn't put more than 2400.
This is Chair Becker. Any other thoughts? Member Flank?
Yes, Member Flank. I had a couple of questions as well about the volunteer hours or their worksheet, which I don't think I could find. Like Member Goodsell, I had a problem with funding this project as well because of the type of things that they wanted to do that I thought the association should cover. Seemed like there was something else. Their budget worksheet too was a problem, or we did not have it. Let's see. I actually had $0 down for this project, but we can discuss it for sure.
Member Goodsell, I just pulled up, now I remember why I put a big question mark by the volunteer hours. They have something like 20 people who are putting in 20 hours each for the planning and execution committee. Will participate in planning discussions, procure requirements, celebration materials, and support coordination and on-site execution of event activities. Having done this, I'm just saying, for a much larger community this, I'm like, wow, that is a lot of people doing not much. Anyway, that's why I have the question marks now for that. But that these are, this does, all of what they're asking as I'm reviewing do fall under the responsibilities of the HOA.
Yeah, I would have to second what Member Flank and what Member Goodsell had mentioned, because I have the volunteer hours right in front of me. Their total volunteer hours is 390, which comes out to about 13,000 and some change. And it is a lot of planning and execution committee, project management. The hours pledge just seems a little inflated, especially in comparison to other applicants who have a similar type project. So I think that's why I had considered awarding them like less than a quarter of what their ask was taking into consideration the volunteer hours.
Member Goodsell, the other component of this is This work, aside from the party that they would plan, will primarily be done by professionals. It will be a landscape company, a lighting company. It will not be homeowners digging a trench for the lighting or grinding out the stump of a tree.
Thank you. Anybody else? Member Flank, did you have more?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like, this is Chair Becker, it sounds like everybody is in agreement that they should get significantly less than the 10,000 they asked for. I know that Member Wong said she had given them a little bit less than a quarter. Does 2,500 sound like something we want to put on the sheet, or do we want to do a little bit more than that? What are people's thoughts there?
Madam Chair, Matthew Tramp here. I think 24, Ms. Wong's 2,500's fair.
Well, Member Flank, I had $0, but the help with getting the lighting is a safety issue, which is one of the things that these grants help communities with, so.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is Chair Becker. I think we can put 2,500 for now and then revisit if we need to. All right, we are moving right along. If anybody needs a break at any point, let me know. It looks like the next highest score is going to be the Beverly Green Neighborhood Association with 75.6. And Beverly Green has in the past done like big Halloween type parties, and I think, or is that Glen Heather? I get confused. Oh no, I'm sorry, lies. Beverly Green is the one with a sign. Thank you. I get them all confused. And so they had asked for 4,000, which is less than half of what the total is. Did anybody have any thoughts about the Beverly Green sign, which is very cool, actually?
Member Goodsell, I awarded them the full amount of 4,000.
So did I, Member Flank.
So did I, Member Tejoe.
And this is Member Iturralde. I worked with this group when they first submitted their original sign, and all those neighborhoods, all of our downtown historic neighborhoods, as you know, talk and collaborate, and that's why we have Mayfair's request for signage and also Francisco Park. And I think you guys met and saw Mark Kaufman, the designer. So I love that this is taken on, and this is what we want. We want to encourage neighborhoods to be like, I like what they're doing. I like that they organize. Let's do that too. Let's identify ourselves. So I appreciate everybody's support.
Anybody else? All right, this is Chair Becker. I think we can go ahead and put their 4,000 max down for now. Okay, so the next highest scoring neighborhood is going to be Grand Entries Neighborhood Association with 75.45. And they had asked for the full 10,000, and they're doing some beautification things. Member Goodsell, is this another one that's an HOA that you had marked?
Member Goodsell, no, this is actually a neighborhood association. And I do have some just logistical concerns about this one with the private property issue. And I had put, I have a note here, 5,000. It wasn't quite it was a little bit less than the minimum, but now I'm not remembering exactly what. This was the one with the wall with the neighbor, that it was the private property, right? Okay.
Yes, this is Chair Becker. This is the neighborhood that Member Estrada is recusing himself from. It's the one on Ann and 95.
Right.
And they do have like a private, one of the places that they need to do work is on private property, but they have a form stating that it's acknowledged that it's private property. And I think that's all in order, correct? Okay. Did anybody else have any thoughts about Grand Entries?
So learning from previous comments about not going down a line item, I came up with a really specific number of 4653. So if I were to round up, I guess that would match Member Goodsell's 5,000.
Yes, I'd also put at least half, just because of the nature of the items that need to be worked on, being a public safety, to the children at the bus stop, there's a weekend fence. Just looking at this, the corrosion, diseased palm trees, you wouldn't want that to fall on any neighbor. I just thought the whole thing, they put in the time. I know this organization, or that, this neighborhood, I should say, they do put in time and effort in trying to beautify and keep the area, the upkeep of the area. There's a lot of course, with Las Vegas, there's a lot of growth, and that's a concern as far as just in general with the weeds and the stucco. It's an ongoing process.
Member Flank, I had a star by this application. I thought it was a good use of funds, and the fact that they have cash donations from the residents, that means they have buy-in to this project and they want to see good things come of it. The neighborhood cleanup, neighborhood cleanups are always needed, and I'm sure that we've all noticed, like the islands driving down the street that the city takes care of. You clean those up, and 3 weeks later, it's a mess again because of the weather, the wind. So the community, I think, has a serious vested interest in maintaining their community. So I would be okay with the 5,000.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. I wrote down several things about this neighborhood, about that this work really needs to be done, and I know that several of you have brought that up as well. And I had put down 5,000 on my sheet because I kind of reduced, the maximum I gave anybody was 5,000. Does anybody have any other thoughts about giving them more than 5,000?
Member Lindsay, I would love to be able to give them more if we could, just because of the fact that it's their first time trying to do this process, and that the fact that there is a safety issue involved with regards to the things that they have listed with removing excess rock. I mean, there's just so much there, and of course, this is going to be the phase one of this. So hopefully they will keep continuing to reapply yearly.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. Any other thoughts? 6,000, 7,000? Any ideas for what to put on the spreadsheet for now?
I'm okay with 6,000. Member Flank.
This is Chair Becker. And does 6,000 sound good to folks for now on the sheet? Okay, excellent. So 6,000 for grand entries. Okay, so the next highest scoring neighborhood, I believe, is Palomino Gardens with 73.81. Okay. And this is an HOA. This is the one that I personally had put 4,100 for because I reduced it because I had gone over. Does anybody have any thoughts about this? Member Goodsell, is this one that you had said 0 to?
Member Goodsell, yes, they've received, so a couple of other things. This is explicitly should be provided for in their HOA reserves. Like, this is just hardcore, easy. It should have been accounted for. They've also received funds, 5 additional years, and they've already received a grant for the asphalt, which I would have called a no-no, because that it would be that it feels like the HOA has not done their fiduciary duty in maintaining the reserves. I remember asking, did they have reserves? And they're like, well, we want to upgrade, but that's not relevant with the reserve. So it feels like maybe this is one where they have been negligent because they don't want to raise. I know it's very small, and that's hard when you are a very small private street. You bear a very large burden for it. So it feels like they maybe have been negligent in their reserves and maybe need to pay attention, attend to that. So this is one that I really felt strongly that was probably not appropriate to use these funds for.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Matthew Tramp here for the record. I'd have to concur with my fellow colleague. I mean, being on an HOA myself, we're having to make some difficult decisions too. And for this particular project, like I said, it isn't for landscaping or any other stuff. So, and they've received grant money in the past before too. So I think, yeah, it's time for them to have to step up and not be dependent on the Neighborhood Partners Fund grants.
Member Goodsell again, and then to the volunteer hours. Because we have 5 gated communities in the organization, the HOA that I work with, and I know what it takes to do it, to install it, and I felt that the volunteer hours were very, very, very inflated. You're calling a gate company, they're doing it, and I don't know if they're just going to have everybody in the community come and watch it, but there's no real way to involve neighborhood members in a gate installation. So that didn't seem to coordinate with the value that this committee, this grant fund puts on volunteer matching funds as well.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. This is Chair Becker. I concur with all of these thoughts. I had written down some of these similar things, and that possibly the members of this neighborhood could just pay for this themselves. I didn't know that this was one of the highest needs projects. So it sounds like a couple members want to go with 0 on this one. Are there any other thoughts? Do we want to go with like a low number instead of 0, or do folks want to decline to fund?
Are we allowed to just, can we move a motion to table this? Oh, you want to do it later? So we just recommend 0 right now as your, so yeah, my preference is for 0 right now.
Okay.
Pending.
I did want to acknowledge that part of their ask was lighting. And in assessing the last applicant, we did go into extensive discussion about lighting. So I just want to make sure that we maintain some standardization. So I would be, I can't find the word for it, but it would make me feel a little uncomfortable to decide right away to decline outright or not grant any money, especially because lighting was like, I mean, it was a small component, but it was a component of their application. So perhaps we could table it for later discussion.
Okay. This is Member Becker. Do we want to put like a placeholder number of 2,000 in there, or put a number of 0 and see what we have left at the end?
In my scoring sheet, I had proposed awarding them 2,200.
Okay. All right. Do we want to just do 2,200 in the sheet for now? Yeah. Okay. Let's do 2,200 for Palomino Gardens for now. It looks like the next association with the next highest score is going to be Buffalo Coalition with 73.78. And I think a lot of us are familiar with this group because they've gotten the grant in the past. Did anyone want to start the discussion for Buffalo Coalition?
Okay, Matthew Tramp here for the record. I think these are one of the cases where they come here annually, year after year, and while it is a comprehensive, it includes both beautifications or safety along with the block party. I think this is getting to a point where they are trying to come year after year to fund block parties, and they're, to me, taking advantage of trying now that they can get up to $10,000. I think they're, to me, it's just getting to the point where we're funding affluent neighborhoods who are not struggling to be funding block parties year after year. So, I mean, I'm not for rejecting all of it. I mean, it does include safety and other factors besides the block party. So I would be, I'm sure somebody else has done the adding up for a lower number than 10,000, so.
Member Goodsell, I would concur. If I remember, if I did the math right, the 75% of the total budget was for essentially for block parties, and I know they're doing several throughout the year. The one thing they do have access to, this is one of those components like the Rainbow Party. They have very wealthy HOAs. I pass by here a lot. They have very wealthy HOAs that could host these parties, who could contribute fees or dues to it. And then this one has a lot of swag to it, which I'm not opposed to. I have the question, is this where we really want this many funds to go to when they do have resources? And I concur with, this is their 5th year to come back, and now it feels like we are providing the HOA fees although they're not like we're the go-to bucket for their events. And maybe it would be time to be creative and maybe do, like a fundraiser or something that might help augment that. So I would be willing to go a lower number than the 10,000.
Member Flank. Yeah, I remember this group. They have fabulous parties, but they're asking for $10,000 with no other components associated with it, such as, a neighborhood cleanup or something like that. But perhaps they don't necessarily need it in their neighborhood. So, or even a public safety component. I also had a problem with all the swag. There's a lot of money in that. And then the self-defense class, $1,700 for like one self-defense class with no understanding of, who's going to actually benefit from that. So I think certainly a reduced amount that would be warranted for this project.
Thank you, Chair Becker. Any other thoughts?
Hi, Member Tehahe. So the Buffalo Coalition falls into my ward, Ward 2, and definitely I scored them the lowest because of all these reasons that we've been listening to right now. We can give the money to HOAs and associations that really need the help. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. Anyone else? All right, so it sounds like everyone concurs we should be giving them definitely less than the max. I had written down 5,000. I know some folks had written down less than 5,000. Do we want to do like a quarter, 2,500? What are some thoughts there?
Member Wong, I had allocated 3820. I know they're really specific numbers. I'm sorry.
And 50 cents.
Yeah. I'm trying not to line item things, but I figured if they follow their own documentation, they'll utilize it towards their highest priorities. But rounding, I guess 3,800 is what I would suggest.
Member Flank, I'm okay with 38 or 4,000.
I agree, Member Tehahe, 4,000.
Board Member Estrada, I also agree. I didn't see any cash donations, and I didn't see any cleanups other than the cleanups for the party that they were having. Thank you.
Member Churchill, is that your mic? Oh, no. Okay, this is Chair Becker. I think it sounds like we can just put 4,000 for now, and then we'll see how the spreadsheet adds up. All right, so that's Buffalo. Okay. All right, we have a request for a break, which I second that request for a break. So I think we can take a recess 10, 15 minutes? 10, 15? 15. All right, we can come back at 2:45. We'll stand in recess until 2:45. All right, this is Chair Becker. I'm going to call this meeting of the Nevada Partners Fund Board back to order. It's 2:45. I got an update of the total amount that is currently in our spreadsheet allocated, $49,700. So that is for 11 associations, which means we have 9 left. And since we're going in order of scoring, I think that that's pretty good, but we'll see how it goes. It looks like the next association is, in order of scoring, is Lakeside Village Homeowners Association with a 73.21 average score. And just for a reminder for folks, this is an HOA, and they had applied for pool decking, like the cool deck on the pool deck, and then monument stuff and a landscape refresh. And I just wanted to note, I was looking at this, and I had written down what happened to the money they got last time, because I thought they were doing a sign last time. So I was going to ask Neighborhood Services. I couldn't see in Zoom grants their past application. It wasn't loading. I just was wondering, like, what they used the last amount for.
Joaska Neighborhood Services, I'm going to check. It's taken a while to load, but I'll get back to you.
Thank you. And then meanwhile, did anybody have any thoughts? They were asking for $10,000. They had said their minimum was $7,000.
Yes, so this is one of the ones I outright declined. When I read the bylaws, it's pretty clear that what they were going to use the grant money towards, those items for sure are exactly what reserve studies are for. So I declined and I allocated 0.
Member Goodso, I also declined for the exact same reason. This, if they don't have the monies in reserves, this would just really be a negligent board that didn't provide for that. Because these are there's a formula for pools and decking that's pretty easy to follow in reserve studies. So I also declined to fund this one at all.
Thank you. Anybody else have thoughts?
Member Estrada, does that include the furniture? Didn't they want to get some? Is that also included in there? Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Did anybody else have concerns? This is Chair Becker. Anybody else have concerns about the HOA bylaws stating that this organization should be using their reserve funds and that we should not give any money? Did anybody want to give a certain amount of money to this HOA? Chair Becker again. Sounds like everybody wants to go with they need to provide this for themselves, so 0? Okay. Oh wait, Johaska is going to tell us about what they used their money last year for.
So it looks like they used their funding last year for like a call box, not signs.
Okay, so it sounds like we have an agreement that we're going to put $0 for Lakeside in our spreadsheet, yes? Okay. 0, that saves money for other folks. Let's move on. The next highest scoring, I believe, is Copper Palms Homeowners Association with 72.98. Did anyone want to open the discussion about Copper Palms?
Member Goodso, this was one that I recommended funding, and I recommend, you said Copper Palms, the minimum, the 6,000. This was the one with the benches in their, the one thing about a reserve fund is it is for maintaining existing elements. If you already have a bench, then you must maintain it. But it does, reserves are not established to provide new elements to an association. My only recommendation was I would put these where there's shade, but that's not for me to say, but maybe they're winter benches. But I had allocated $6,000 for this association.
Member Lindsay, did you? have thoughts.
Yes, Member Lindsay, I had allocated 4,000 just because of the fact that I can't remember, I didn't write it down, so, but yeah.
Thank you, Member Lindsay. I'm sure it was math. That's why I had also put 4,000 for Copper Palms. Did anybody else have a recommendation? We've got a 6,000 and two 4,000.
6,000. Member Flank, I have an allocation of 6.
Anybody else? Does 6,000 sound like what we can put in the spreadsheet for now? Okay, great. So 6,000 for Copper Palms. Okay, the next highest scoring neighborhood association is Francisco Park Neighborhood Association. They got a 72.61. And this is gateway signs going into the park to welcome visitors. Does anybody want to open the discussion here?
Oh, Member Goodsell does. Surprise, surprise. I allocated 6,000. I think this is just exactly what this fund is for. I do have a background in design and architecture, and I love the idea of preserving what is uniquely Las Vegas. We copy so many other things. I love this idea of this historical component spreading throughout this area in our community.
Member Flank, I agree with you. I love these old vintage Vegas neighborhoods, and to support them for this type of project, and it would also tie them in with the rest of the old neighborhoods that are close. So some consistency.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Joaska with Neighborhood Services. I do want to clarify that with speaking with Francisco Park, they did change their ask. They put 6,000 in their application, but they changed it to 4,000 during the presentation. And so then they uploaded their corrected forms into Zoom Grants to show the change, because they did have a match of 4,000 and not 6, and it's because they actually changed their ask, but in the application it reflected the old ask.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. That probably explains why I put 4,000 and Member Lindsay put 4,000. So we cannot give them more than 4,000. Okay. Is everybody in agreement that we should give them their max ask of 4,000? Excellent. Well, let's put 4,000 in the spreadsheet for Francisco Park. The next highest scoring neighborhood is going to be Mayfair Neighborhood Association with 71.51 points. And Mayfair was also asking for money for neighborhood signage. Does anyone want to open that conversation?
Member Goodsell, I have 3,000, so I am a yes on this one. But there was like a difference in the, I saw 10,000 and 3,000 on my computer. Can we get clarification on that one?
Joska Neighborhood Services, so they are asking for 3,000. The Zoom Grants application doesn't reflect that change for whatever reason, but they are asking for 3,000.
Okay, then I would agree with the 3,000 for this particular neighborhood.
This is Chair Becker. I had also said the total for them for 3,000. Did anybody have any other thoughts or an alternate number? No? All right, well, let's, Member Flank? Perfect. All right, so 3,000 for Mayfair for signage. All right, the next, now I have to do math in my head. The next highest is Hillstone Estates Homeowners Association with 70.66. And Hillstone Estates is an HOA. And Member Goodsell, did you have anything to add there?
Member Goodsell, I do. These these funds should be coming out of the reserves, even with the public safety component to it and it being lighting. These really are still things that should come out of reserve studies, so I decline to fund this one.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. This is Chair Becker. Did anybody else have thoughts? I know that we have in the past funded this neighborhood for similar projects at their front gate. It is a really small HOA. I do know someone who lives in this neighborhood. I don't think I need to recuse myself. I don't live in it and I'm not in their association. But I have been to this neighborhood and I believe there's only 25 or 30 homes in here. And it's not like a super high income neighborhood or anything. So are there any other thoughts? Do people want to do 0 because this is something they should be funding, or do we want to just give them less?
I think, again, just echoing off of my prior comments and maintaining consistency in considering lights and public safety, I did put less than half of what they were asking at $4,500 because I did see that they received $5,000 in a prior cycle for lights as well, and I sort of saw this second request as like a second phase of a continuing project. But if the board wants to go with 0, I'm understanding of that as well. But I did put 4,500.
Member Lindsay, I also did 4,500. My notes say that there's 29 homes in this association, and that they were retrofitting their lighting. So I thought that was a good use of the money.
Okay, any other thoughts? It sounds like we've got 2 folks looking at about 4,500. People seem okay with 4,500? Okay, so let's put 4,500 in the spreadsheet for Hillstone Estates.
Member Goodsell, by way of clarification, this is their 3rd year requesting funds. I think, Wong, you said just last year. I'm not sure what 23. It looks like they've got 23 and 26. They also requested funds.
Yes, I believe so. Okay, so is there any more discussion for Hillstone? No. All right, it looks like we're almost there, y'all. We've got Rock Springs Vista 3 Homeowners Association with a score of 70.54 is the next association on the list. And this is a landscaping project. In the past, they have put in the bench on Washington outside their neighborhood, and now they're going to be upgrading some landscaping. So did anybody have thoughts on what they propose allocating?
Member Goodsell, of course, has a thought. This is, in regards to being an HOA, this is new landscaping, so that doesn't follow some of the reserve issues. I put 3,000. I think I would consider more, but when I was doing adding up my numbers, this was kind of one of my last ones to address, so that may have been, I had 3,000 left. So this does not fall under that it should have been managed by a reserve study component.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. This is Chair Becker. I also had put down 5,000 for this neighborhood association because I thought that this project is something that was needed, and I didn't think that this is something their HOA should have been paying for either, but I didn't have enough money in my budget to give the total 10,000. So does anybody have other thoughts besides 3 or 5,000?
I also put 5,000 as well, and I did make a note. I believe they said it during their presentation. About 25,000 was actually going to come from their reserves for this project. So they are fronting quite a bit of money to do this themselves. So I felt like 5,000 was fair in assisting them with this.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Do we just want to put 5,000 in the spreadsheet?
Member Flank. I was looking at the amount of money that they were willing to contribute to the project as well. I actually have them down for the minimum of 7. So something to discuss.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. Maybe we can put an asterisk next to them in their spreadsheet, so if we have money left, this is one we could put more on. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. All right. So the next highest scoring neighborhood association is going to be the Minetta Lane Homeowners Association. And they were asking for $7,000 This is for a public safety project that involves their gate, and I remember we had quite a discussion about the tech at the gate and whatnot. So does anyone have thoughts about allocation for Manetta Lane?
Member Goodsell believes this is absolutely a reserve study issue. They've also received 3 separate funds 3 separate times. I'm not sure what those things were for. And then I did have some question on the hours that they pledged. With this, if you're just installing a gate and programming it, that seemed quite high. To me, this doesn't meet the threshold, so I declined to fund this. I think that may be a good idea to start maybe weaning HOAs off of funds from this organization. And this may be one of those that would be a classic example of that.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. This is Chair Becker. I remember we did raise the volunteer issue in the meeting because they had listed everyone in the HOA just with 1 hour. Member Flank, did you have thoughts?
Yes, that was one of my issues, and also there are no donations from anyone. Although I think this is a good project, I didn't put them down as 0. I was thinking, I think their minimum, if I recall correctly, was 6,500. And I had them down for, because I think this is a good, worthy project, I had them down for 5K. So something we can discuss.
Did anyone else have thoughts? This is Chair Becker. I also had them down for 5,000, but we have the issue that Member Goodsell raised that the funds they're asking for are something that their HOA bylaws tell them they have to use their reserves to pay for. So are there any thoughts about between 5,000 and 0?
Member Goodsell, I think to if we're going to address equality, I think if we are going to fund a gate, we need to tread very carefully on that. If we're going to fund one person's gate and not another entity's gate, and gates are clearly stated in reserve studies as well, whether it's just the keypad or the lighting around it or whatever. So I think we have to be very careful on if we want to provide equity in the application of the funds.
Okay, this is Chair Becker. I think in light of that, because there is going to be another organization later, maybe 2, that are also asking for gates, and they are HOAs. So do we want to put 0 for the remaining organizations that are asking for funding for gates specifically because of that issue?
And would it depend upon if it's in a HOA or community organization? Or
This is Chair Becker. I believe so because neighborhood associations don't have bylaws that are governed by NRS like HOAs do. Okay, so we're okay with giving 0. Member Wong?
Yeah, so there were actually only 2 that were I wrote it down as entrance gate access panel upgrade. They were both HOAs. We already covered one of them, which is Palomino. And when we discussed Palomino, that was just a straight decline, and the only amount we preliminary proposed allocating was just for the lighting. So if we're going to decline for Palomino, then I think to be consistent, this should also be a decline. But this one, unlike Palomino, didn't have additional considerations for lighting components.
Thank you for that clarification. I believe there's another.
I just wanted to ask Johaska, is that something that we can make a little bit more clear during the application process so that, you know, some of these communities aren't like, oh my gosh, we did all this work and now because we're an HOA, we won't get this. So I was just curious, is there instructions now on those applications?
Joska Neighborhood Services, are you asking if that is listed like in the guidelines as far as the reserve funds and that, or are you saying specifically for this kind of project?
I'm asking if it is part of their application process, or if we do a Zoom grants, you know, if we help them. I know that in years past, we've helped others with assistance completing the grant through Zoom grants. And if at any point during the process where we're assisting them to apply for the grant, are we educating them on, like, hey, this is kind of frowned upon because you're an HOA. We would like you to consider these things that are not part of that reserve, something.
Member Goodsell, this might be of help, and I'm not certain, it may ask why, it may answer kind of to what extent there may be ignorance to this component. If they read the eligibility projects and the types of projects and purchases not eligible, you would have to read this. And as an HOA member, and not all HOA members are the same. A lot of them are actually managed by an outside company and they have a board, but they don't really know what's required of them. They really rely on a management company, which probably is very much the case. But in the things that are, and purchases that are not eligible, this is stated in this document, the guidelines, which I don't know if the applicants read thoroughly, or even if you were an HOA member, you would have the cognition to know, oh, this is where these dollars should come from. Because it really is a learning curve you're on when you're on a board. It says direct subsidy of existing services, operating budgets, or reserve budgets of common interest communities. So when I read that, before I went through, it was very clear to me, these were anything that should be provided by reserve dollars are not eligible for us to fund. And so that's why I was kind of the hanging judge and declined anything that really belongs in an HOA reserve allocation. So that it is there, but to the extent that they may not read it or understand what it means when they read it, could be very likely in my mind.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that because, you know, they may not be aware, like she stated, I wasn't aware that that would be covered under something that they offered. So this has been helpful for me to learn on this board and having this discussion, but going forward, I just think it's really helpful to make sure we're steering those community members more in a granting. You know, I don't want people to come before us and be like, no, denied. You know, so I would like us to educate them on, like, hey, you know, lean in on your HOA a little bit more for these things. So just want to make that clear for you too.
Yes, so Josca Neighborhood Services. So we do have 3, Neighborhood Partners Fund workshops or info sessions where we do go over the guidelines and do, mention these not eligible, lists. But we are in talks, the leadership in my department of how we can be more specific with the HOAs, because this has definitely been in conversation. We do have it in the guidelines that, direct subsidy of existing services operating budgets or reserve budgets of common interest communities is not eligible, but we are also in talks of how we can understand that in the application processes for specifically for HOAs so that we know what the reserve funds look like for them when they're applying. Right now, we don't have that, and that's what we're like working on behind the scenes.
I think there also has to be an acknowledgement that we've repeated many times. This is the first year where the total requested amount grossly exceeds the funds available. So, and I believe I had read that a prior applicant's ask for a very similar type of project was approved, and so I think, it's okay that there's this need for clarification now, because I anticipate that in future cycles, if the requested amount is going to continually grossly exceeding the amount available, then, I think that's what prompted, okay, probably we should look into it more. But in the past, if you're fighting to give away money, like, if someone's asking for it and you have it, why not? So I don't think, and any prior actions can be faulted. So, but I do appreciate Member Goodsell educating all of us on reserve studies. So thank you.
All right, this is Chair Becker. So I also really appreciate the additional knowledge about what HOAs are like legally obligated to provide, because that's not something that we've really had to discuss in the past, since we didn't have all of the money that was available being asked. So it sounds like we are all in agreement that since this is just for a gate and not lighting and other things, and they're supposed to be paying for it themselves, that we're gonna decline and say $0. Is that the agreement? Yes, okay. So we'll do $0 for Minetta Lane Homeowners Association. Okay, so 2 more to go, I believe. The next one is Rainbow Family Park Neighborhood Association. They scored 57.59 in our average of everyone's scoring. And this has been brought up already that this is a neighborhood association, but inside this neighborhood association, there are HOAs. And this is for like a neighborhood event. And this is one of the organizations that has a lot of the swag giveaway things that we have mentioned. I personally just put down half of what they asked, which is actually what they also said their minimum was, which is 5,000. But I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
Member Goodsell, I was right there with you, Chairwoman, at 5,000.
Matthew Tramp here. This is another neighbor that's been applying for grants every year since I've been on the board. The only year we ever rejected block parties was 2020 because of COVID. We didn't feel it was right to be funding block parties at a time when we were asking people to not be in group events. So it is it's a combination of multiple projects, not just the neighborhood. So I think 5,000 is reasonable because they're not asking for all the money to be going toward the block party. So it'll be used for multiple purposes.
Member Goodsell, it looks like this is their 9th year receiving funds, so they have quite a track history, and they have between 100 and 120 participants, so that seems very generous as well.
This is Chair Becker. Any other thoughts? It looks like we've got consensus on 5,000 unless somebody has other ideas. Yeah, okay, so let's put 5,000 in the spreadsheet. And that leaves us with our final association, which is the Rancho Nevada Estates Homeowners Association. They scored 55.37 on the average for everybody. And I believe this is another association that the work being done is on their gate. It isn't to upgrade the gate. It is for signage. I personally put down $0 for this organization. Just because I feel like this neighborhood can afford to do this themselves, and maybe their HOA is supposed to be paying for this, but I'm not sure. So I would defer to other folks on what your thoughts are.
I also allocated 0 as well because I felt it was a HOA responsibility.
This is Member Becker. Was there anyone on the board who wanted to allocate funds and disagreed with that? It does not look like it. All right, so this is one that we're going to deny funding and put $0, it sounds like. So 0 for Rancho Nevada. Yay. Okay, so I think that's that's going through all of them. Do we have an update on what that total on the spreadsheet is?
7,800 remaining.
So we have the total awarded at 77,200, and so the remaining is 2,800.
Thank you. This is Chair Becker. Okay, so if we have 2,800 left, I believe we put an asterisk next to which one? Okay.
Rock Springs.
And so can we, do we want to give the total extra to them or pick a couple others? What are people's thoughts?
I don't object to that necessarily, but I would also like to consider, hang on, I put my own asterisk next to one. The Grand Entries neighborhood. I think we allotted, was it 6,000 for that one? That one I wouldn't mind seeing increased. They have some complications, and I think they could really benefit from that. And I think they have a lot of public visibility in that project particular. That was my only other thought.
I had the same comment with regard to grant entries, if we could give them, if we had any reserve left, just to up their award, if we could.
I believe Member Lindsay stated grand entries, and then Rock Springs is also getting extra. And then I think there's some comments down on the left.
Yeah, for grand entries, their minimum was around 8,000, and I think we have enough, so I'd consider that when allocating it.
Member Goodsell, I would agree with that as well. And then I don't want to bring up a sore spot, but the Palomino Gardens Association, we did allocate $2,200 with the idea that it would go to lighting, and I looked up, their lighting is for 6 well lights and $2,200 because they're already pulling power there, so they're just actually putting in 6 fixtures. That is very, very generous. If we felt like we wanted to augment somebody else's budget and maybe skim some off of that, they are a homeowners association. So there might be some play there if somebody wanted to move some other dollars around.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair Becker. If there's 2,800 extra, we could give 1,400 more to Rock Springs and then 1,400 more to Grand Entries. Or we could also take some from Palomino. I think Member Flank does not want to do that. You want to keep Palomino at 2,200?
Yeah, we'll keep them at that. That's a minimal amount.
Okay, so it's, if we do, is there agreement on that? Can we do 1,400 each to Rock Springs and Grand Entries? Or do we want to split it a different way? 1,400 each? Okay, so if we added 1,400 to Grand Entries, that puts them up to 7,400. And if we add 1,400 to Rock Springs, that puts them at 6,400, is that correct? Okay, and does that even it out at 80,000? Ooh, you guys, maybe we did it.
Math is so fun.
Thank you. I do love math. Okay, so it sounds like we've had this discussion. We have the 80,000 allocated. Does anyone have any additional commentary before we go through the process of making motions on each individual HOA?
I just want to make sure the amount for Fremont Lofts, were we not tabling that, or that's set at 5,000?
I have 5,000. Is that what, this is Chair Becker. In the spreadsheet, it says 5,000.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. I think then what we can do, it might be easier to just go in alphabetical order and go off the numbers that we have in the spreadsheet, and then someone can motion, I motion that we approve this amount once we ask how much is in the spreadsheet. Okay. All right. Okay, well, I will start. And then anyone that wants to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we begin allocating, well, I don't need to make a motion. We're in number 6, yeah? Okay, so I make a motion that we allocate $4,000 to Beverly Green Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, I believe we say, do I open voting now? Okay, all those in favor can say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes unanimously for $4,000 to Beverly Green.
Member Tehaje, are we logging that somewhere where it says official decision, or is, where are we putting that?
This is Chair Becker. The neighborhood services and the staff is going to have that. Yeah, in Zoom grants, there is a place where we can do that, but we don't have to do that. Of course. All right, do I hear a motion for the next association?
I move that we approve 4,000 for the Buffalo Coalition Neighborhood Association.
Approve.
All right, the motion on the floor is to approve 4,000 for Buffalo Coalition Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so motion passes. Buffalo Coalition Neighborhood Association unanimously, $4,000. Do I hear a motion on the next association?
I move that the board allocate 6,000 to Copper Palms Homeowners Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is for Copper Palms Homeowners Association to receive an allocation of $6,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I
Nay?
make, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I make a motion that the board allocate $6,000 to the Crestwood Neighborhood Association.
Okay, first, Copper Palms Neighborhood Association. Yes, okay, so the Copper Palms Neighborhood Association, I heard no nays. I heard unanimous ayes for $6,000. Okay, so motion passes for Copper Palms. And now Member Goodsell.
I make a motion that the board allocate $6,000 to the Crestwood Neighborhood Association.
All right, the motion on the floor is to allocate $6,000 to Crestwood Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, motion passes unanimously for $6,000 to Crestwood Neighborhood Association. Do I hear another motion?
Madam Chair, I make a recommendation that the board approve $4,000 to Francisco Park Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Member Churchill. The motion on the floor is to approve $4,000 for the Francisco Park Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes for Francisco Park Neighborhood Association to receive $4,000. Do I hear another motion?
I make a motion that the board allocate $5,000 to the Fremont Street Loft Homeowners Association.
Thank you. Member Wong has proposed allocating $5,000 for the Fremont Street Loft Homeowners Association.
I'm going by Member Goodsell for now.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm just saying, I really like her, but.
I apologize. Member Goodsell made the motion for Fremont Street Loft Homeowners Association to receive $5,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You were an aye. Okay. I heard unanimous ayes for Fremont Street Loft Homeowners Association to receive $5,000. All right, and I will hear another motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, Matthew Trapp moves that we award $5,000 to Glen Heather Estates Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to approve $5,000 for Glen Heather Estates Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously for $5,000 allocation to Glen Heather Estates Neighborhood Association. Do I hear another motion?
Member Lindsay, Madam Chair, I move that the board approve 7,400 to Grand Entries Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to approve $7,400 to the Grand Entries Neighborhoods Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion
And if we
passes.
can also include the abstention for that one.
I'm sorry?
Okay, I was just making sure we had the abstention on there.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so motion passes unanimously for Grand Entries Neighborhood Association to receive $7,400. Do I hear another motion?
I'd make a motion that we allocate $6,000 to the Hillside Heights Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Member Goodsell proposes allocating $6,000 to the Hillside Heights Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously, $6,000 to Hillside Heights Neighborhoods Association. Do I hear another motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we give $4,500 to the Hillstone Estates 2 Homeowners Association.
Thank you, Member Churchill. The motion on the floor is to approve $4,500 for Hillstone Estates 2 Homeowners Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes unanimously, $4,500 to Hillstone Estates 2 Homeowners Association. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I motion that we approve $6,000 to Hunridge Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor from Member Lascano is for $6,000 for the Huntridge Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes unanimously for the Huntridge Neighborhood Association to receive $6,000. And this is Chair Becker, I just have a question. we don't have to have a motion for ones that are not being funded, is that correct? Or do we have to do the motion and then say 0?
Deputy City Attorney Chris Avialje for the record. Yes, you would still put those ones on the record. You can put all 3 of the ones you're funding at 0.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, this is Chair Becker. I propose a motion to allocate $0 to Lakeside Village Homeowners Association, Minetta Lane Homeowners Association, and the Rancho Nevada Estates Homeowners Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. That motion passes. So Lakeside Village Homeowners Association, Minetta Lane Homeowners Association, and Rancho Nevada Estates Homeowners Association, allocation of $0. Do I hear another motion?
Member Goodsell making a motion to allocate $3,000 to the Mayfair Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. The motion on the floor is to allocate $3,000 to the Mayfair Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. $3,000 allocated to Mayfair Neighborhood Association. Do I hear another motion?
Madam Chair, Matthew Tramp, I move we award $2,200 to Palomino Gardens Homeowner Association.
Thank you, Member Tramp. The motion on the floor is to award $2,200 to the Palomino Gardens Homeowners Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. $2,200 allocated to Palomino Gardens Homeowners Association. Do I hear another motion?
I move that the board approve allocating $5,000 to Rainbow Family Park Neighborhood Association.
All right, thank you, Member Wong. We have a motion on the floor for a $5,000 allocation to the Rainbow Family Park Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. $5,000 to Rainbow Family Park Neighborhood Association. Do I hear another motion?
Member Goodsell, I'd make a motion that the board allocate $6,400 to the Rock Springs Vista 3 Homeowners Association.
Thank you, Member Goodsell. The motion on the floor is to approve $6,400 for Rock Springs Vista 3 Homeowners Association. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. $6,400 for Rock Springs Vista 3 Homeowners Association. Do I hear another motion?
Madam Chair, I motion that we give $3,000 to Westside Community Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor from Member Lascano is for $3,000 to be allocated to the Westside Community Neighborhood Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Motion passes. Westside Community Neighborhood Association has been allocated $3,000. Do I hear another motion?
Madam Chair, Matthew Tramp, I move we award $2,500 to Winchester Maintenance Corporation Association.
Thank you. The motion on the floor from Member Tramp is to allocate $2,500 to the Winchester Maintenance Corporation Association. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right. So that motion also passes unanimously, $2,500 to Winchester Maintenance Corporation Association. And that finishes business for item 6. All right. Item 7 is the second public comment for citizens' participation. I see no one. Do I still have to read public comment? All right.
Deputy City Attorney Chris Avialje for the record. You can just read it just for,
Okay.
make sure you have it on the record.
I thought I might need to read it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so if there is anyone here for public comment during this portion of the agenda, your comment may be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. No subject may be acted upon by the board unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion may be limited, as well as the amount of time any speaker is allowed. Seeing no one, I close item number 7, and I propose we adjourn. Yay.
Member Goodsell, thank you everybody for your patience teaching me. This has just been an honor to see these presentations and work with all of you. So thank you from this end of the room.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right, meeting adjourned, 3:29.